Hello, listeners. So I want to give a very quick intro before we kick off this episode. This was my first IRL recording of the Bold podcast. And what's great about this is that it was done in Cork, which is where I'm from. And it was done with one of my favourite people in the world, Mary Claire O'Sullivan, who's also a Cork woman. And not so long ago, left her career in fashion and decided to train as a nutrition and health coach. So Mary Claire talks a lot about balancing our hormones, blood sugars, and everything that relates to food, health, well-being, and hormonal balance, which is something I am so passionate about myself. I know that for me, learning about how my cycle works and how to eat to support my hormones has been totally life-changing. So I'm really excited for you to watch or listen to this episode. I think there's a lot of wonderful takeaways. Please note that the information provided on this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and should not be considered medical advice. I hope you enjoy. Obviously, we have known each other for literally years.
Yeah.
But you've had so many changes in the last couple of years. So I'm handing over. Tell us everything.
Okay. So I am Mary Claire O'Sullivan. I am a nutrition and health coach. And I just transitioned from my career working in the fashion industry for like 20 years. I started in your family business, Amy. Monica John, way back in the day, I was a manager, and then I transitioned over to Samui Fashions, which was great. I had a great experience in both places. In 2020, then, as we all know, COVID hit. After that, the business changed. The online side of it just grew massively. I've never experienced anything like it. It was really interesting to be involved in that change and transitioning from like having no bricks and mortar business, the shop was closed, to an online business. And how do you navigate that? And how do you create desire in people when they're at home feeling a bit sad because the world is closed down? And we had beautiful product. We had a lot of product in the shop. And so we started showcasing that and, showing people what they had. And then, it just took off and it was great. And there were things happening in my personal life as well. My parents were sick and there was a lot going on, and I was sick. I had, an operation that was scheduled to happen actually in March 2020, which had to be delayed. So all the while my work was getting crazy, I was kind of getting a bit sicker and stuff was happening. So you know what? In 2022, it just eventually led to my burnout. And I was like, what am I going to do here? So I decided I was just going to leave. And I've always been interested in nutrition, Amy, like my whole life. The whole idea of, food as a stimulus, obviously as nourishment and sustenance and pleasure and everything that it gives us, but, as a stimulant as well, and how we respond to it and how we, flourish or otherwise, you know what I mean? So I decided I was going to study that, and it's just been the most amazing thing I've ever done. The best decision I ever made. I remember learning about ultra processed food, UPF. I was like, what is that? And
wild.
the autonomy and control that we can have over our health outcomes, not always, obviously, but there's so much that we can do to support ourselves. And just bringing it back to the burnout thing. I remember like when I was getting really, really sick, a friend of mine who's a psychologist, he said to me, "Oh, you're burnt out." And I was like, burnout. I was like, I was like, I don't have time for burnout. And now I've learned so much about the adrenals and the nervous system and the HPA axis and how going like I was going, and perfectionism and people pleasing and all those sort of things that lead to burnout, and again, so it's not just the food, it's our behaviors and our thoughts and our actions and our relationships and our community, and there's so much that contribute to our well-being and our nervous system regulation, which has become an area I'm very, very interested in. So that's where I am now, Amy. Yeah. And I started up a business as a nutrition and health coach and helping, I guess, primarily females, about 30 plus kind of thing, and into my age group, who are suffering from this dysregulation that can occur because the environment that we live in now it's very frenetic, and there's a lot of environmental toxins as well. And
absolutely,
like how we can control those. We can't live in a non-toxic environment. We just can't. We're putting petrol in our cars. We have to do so many things, but knowledge is power, and how much we can sort of manage and control for our well-being, those what they call endocrine disruptors, so hormone
Yes.
disruptors. There's so much that we can do, and it's about, being not letting overwhelm get hold and saying, I can do this. And yeah, that's what I love teaching people about, and helping women to keep in a state of, it's called homeostasis, where we have balance within our hormonal systems and networks. So
I love that.
as I say, it's not just food, it's an amalgam of things, you know what I mean?
Yeah. We've basically both left our worlds. We've changed careers, and it was really scary. And I kind of want to talk about that transition. I love authenticity. It's a really annoying word, and it's overused and it's misused.
But it's the only word.
Anyone that I love their content, it's probably because they're teaching me something, but in a really entertaining way and in a funny way. Everyone is catching on to this way of being online on videos, and it's like, here are the top 3 things I'm going to teach you about, blah, blah. And everyone is sounding the same. Everyone is looking the same. And I've basically building my whole business on elevating different people and authentic people and underrepresented people. Content at the moment, the way it's going, is all to do with, like, you are the niche as an individual. It's not about you, Mary Claire, have to be talking about all the time, got my microbiome. And I say this to you all the time. If you unleashed your whole self online, people would lose their minds, like, because your personality is, like, I'd say you have the greatest personality I've ever come across in my life.
Get up on that table now.
But you're
granny Sorry, I was just affected.
I know you're one of the people that if you were just unleashed to the world, and if everyone could kind of see you through a video format or whatever, they would be like, I need some inspiration. You know who I'm going to put on? Mary Claire. She's fucking amazing. She's like really going to lift my soul. Like, that's the magic that you have.
Thank you.
Yeah, but I want you to be doing that, but I know it's really hard. So let's talk about what's really hard about actually unleashing your authentic self.
I think that a lot of my problems, I don't have anybody to bounce shit off, and I think I'm better. We've all seen amazing creators online, like Kyla Cobbler.
We love her.
She doesn't need anybody.
Yeah.
She goes on, she's like, hello, Parish. But she doesn't need, whereas I'm more energized now. I have more endorphins going through my body since I met you an hour or whatever ago than I've had in a week, because you've energized me. You know what I mean? Half of it is the fear of showing up. People don't care about me the way I think they do, if you know what I mean.
Oh, yeah.
They don't
don't care about us at all.
No, they don't. And when you do something, they're happy to see it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm the only one who's thinking that people are like, sure. Like, they're just not. And if they are, it's okay. I really would love people to unfollow.
Yeah.
I would love that. In fact, please unfollow.
Do you know what? If someone unfollows, like,
that's actually a good...
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. Because you obviously don't like me. And that's okay that they don't like me.
Yeah.
Because that's what I do. If I don't like someone, they're bothering me in any way, or don't agree, not necessarily don't agree with them, but I'm just like, this doesn't bring happiness into my life, I will unfollow them. I wish them well, and I let go, and then I move on with my life and pour my energy into stuff that...
But that was a learning.
Yeah.
That was a learning. I needed to realize that and make peace with that and embrace it, actually. So this time a year ago, like, I would feel bruised, and I'd be like, what didn't they like about me? And now I realize that it might actually be about me at all. Maybe they've shut down their account, let's be clear. You know what I mean? Like, let's it is about me sometimes, and that's okay.
That's okay.
That's really okay. And by the way, it's I would prefer that, because I would prefer the people who are following me to be interested in what I have to say.
I really started to understand in my mid-20s that I could actually really impact my cycle and my PCOS symptoms by eating and exercising, and looking after my stress levels. But one of the things, and it really helped, like it helped me so much. I've had a difficult few years recently with, obviously we all did with COVID and different health things, but I'm kind of getting back on track now again, which is great. But there is so much that if we learn about it, but what is terrifying is that the food industry is so deregulated. So we are lied to all the time about what's healthy, this, that, and the other. And unless you're actually interested in it, and if you were just someone who didn't educate yourself on it and you're just living your life as a busy woman, there's endocrine disruptors everywhere flying at us from all angles. And it's really messing up our bodies. So just for people that are listening that don't know, can you tell us what an endocrine disruptor is?
Well, it's something that interrupts the natural rhythm of your own hormones.
Yeah.
So your hormonal system, your hormone network is called your endocrine system.
Yeah.
So endocrine disruptors are things like plastics, chemicals,
Yeah.
that are on in our makeups, and
I
the
know.
fake tan and the hair and the skin. I mean, the nail varnish. I've got my nails done. A really big contributor is the glyphosate, like the Roundup that they put on foods to make them, proliferate faster. So it's really, really, really important that you wash your fruit and vegetables before you eat them. If you can afford to do so, to buy organic food where you can. But glyphosate is one that we really need to be thinking about. Like it does do damage to your gut and your other systems. So that's what they are. And there's so much that you can do again, instead of using plastic chopping boards, which we've all grown up with, you can change to your wooden chopping boards.
Oh, that's good advice.
Yeah, absolutely.
crikey.
Instead of using plastic bottles, use glass bottles.
Oh, Jesus.
You know the way you might put your plastic containers into the dishwasher.
Yeah.
Not to do that at all. Now, if you're using glass, that won't be an issue, because these toxins leach out of the plastic when they're exposed to intense heat, and again that upsets your hormone balance inside. So it's no surprise that not just women, men too, are experiencing hormonal disruptions, but women particularly, because our hormone systems are much more sophisticated. So that we are experiencing, say in my experience, women are experiencing perimenopausal symptoms really intensely, and even earlier than, say, our mothers may have done. But again, awareness, and there's so much we can do, and there's so much we can do to kind of interrupt that taking complete hold of you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the earlier the better, like what you did in your 20s. That was really impressive, Amy.
Well, thank you for saying that. I was so lucky. One of my best friends, Dr. Dominique, she's now about to go on a journey of lifestyle medicine. We lived together at the time, and she was just so helpful, and we were always really interested in like hormonal health and well-being and everything. And we that's the thing, I had like an ally, and we went on the journey of it together. And that's, I think, what a lot of women really struggle with. If you don't have that ally or friend or someone to talk to about it, you're in your own little world. There is research done. Obviously, we're getting a lot more understanding of our hormones, of our endocrine system, etc., how it's linked to our mental health, which is another massive one. And I've really struggled with my own mental health around stuff to do with my hormones. So I was very lucky in that sense, and it really, really helped. And the fact that we were living together, we were kind of cooking together, we were encouraging each other. Something like that is really powerful. But I think a lot of women, especially most healthcare systems, they go to the doctor, and I have utmost respect for our medical staff and doctors, but like the doctor is there to help you cure your illness. So people aren't talking about how can we have longevity of our bodies and of our lives. What about preventative medicine? What about learning about how our bodies work, and especially as women, how our hormonal systems work, how stress, cortisol, all that stuff is like the number one cause of illness. And we're not thinking about that. The cortisol in our body, the burnout. Like, I was the same as you. I was like, oh, sure, burnout. Like I have been burnt out. And the symptoms are so subtle. You can't really, you can't get enough sleep. Like you get like 8 hours and you wake up and you're exhausted, and all these little things, and you just plow through and you keep going. And like, we're not picking up on those signs, and then we're kind of sending ourselves to early graves if we're not really thinking about all the toxins, and if we're not looking at the balance and eating the right foods and fiber, the gut microbiome, which I'm dying to talk about. Me and Tom call them the microbions.
The microbiome.
Because we're always talking about our gut microbiome. We're like, girl, the microbiomes are going to love this now.
The microbiomes, they're going to love, feed it some fibre.
Yeah, you have to feed the mics.
Yeah, feed the mics. I love it. I'm never going to call it the microbiome ever again. It's going to be the microbiome.
But we were talking about it, and someone misheard us, and they were like, who's microbiome? And we were like, oh my God,
the
microbiomes.
Yeah.
So feeding the microbiomes is really important.
Yes.
So okay, what is gut microbiome, and talk about that?
That's gas. So the gut microbiome is like a colony of microbes that live in your large intestine essentially, and they're really, really important family, if you want to call it that. So if you it's actually a good idea to think of this colony as separate to yourself, if you know what I mean, because there are trillions and trillions and trillions of these bacterium down there, far more than there are our own self cells. So if you like, you know, the idea that we think that we are superior to this, you know, colony is ludicrous, because they are controlling us. If you think about the gut microbiome as your software, and your body and everything else is your hardware. So they are stunning. They're the control center. Okay. Be assured. You know what I mean? Okay. But within that, then we need to treat it and love it and feed it appropriately and nourish it. And if you do that, they'll do everything. They'll do everything else. They'll look after your mental health, your physical health, your immune system, everything. So the idea that, you know, we can load ourselves up with whatever the case may be, like sugars and really processed foods that contain a lot of chemicals, and I mean alcohol, tobacco, you know, all of these chemicals, you know, we're going to have poor mental health. You know, we're going to have poor physical health, you know, so we need to just bear it in mind when you create a meal. Say to yourself, where's the fiber on this plate? Where is the food for my microbiome? What am I doing today to serve my to serve microbrain? What am I doing to serve Mike today?
People talk about this gut feeling and this feeling in your gut when you're stressed and whatever. And like our brain and our stomach is so connected, especially women.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, the whole thing about baby brain, that's such a real thing.
It's a real thing.
It's all disrupted. And then your brain is like, you have brain fog, it's not working properly because all of those parts of your brain are having difficulties because of the way that your gut is impacted.
But if you think about it, Amy, our brain and our gut are actually physically connected through this cord, through this, you know, the vagus nerve. It's an actual physical cord. So we also have a chemical connection whereby when we eat, you know, this fiber, this prebiotic fiber, the microbes then give off these gases, these short chain fatty acids and butyrate and things like that, and they send up chemical messengers to our brain, which again encourage our good mental health and so on and so forth. So you want them to be firing off these chemical messengers. You know what I mean? So that's not going to happen if you're not feeding them appropriately. They're not going to be creating these amazing, you know, fortuitous, you know, foods and gases for us. You know what I mean? So there's a byway connection there. You know what I mean?
That's really interesting. I did buy a book recently about fermenting. So it's all about fermenting, but also all the health benefits of eating fermented food. I mean, I love fermented food. I love like kimchi and all that stuff. But I didn't realize, well, I did kind of realize, which is why I bought the book, but I didn't realize the extent of how good fermented food is for the microbiomes. And I keep thinking of my microbiomes like in my head as a circus. And I'm like, okay, they all have different tricks. But I need to feed the different people of the circus in different things. It's about variety, isn't it?
Totally, it's about diversity. And then what you're talking about there in terms of the fermented foods is the probiotic bacteria. So that's proliferating the number of bacteria that you have down there and kind of like adding to your colony, you know what I mean? So the more diversity you have down there, the better for various different you know, functions in your body. So you want to get that probiotic bacteria and all that stuff that you love, all that delicious fermented food, and it could be your yogurt, your kimchi, your sauerkraut, your kombucha or whatever. And by the way, just a spoon of sauerkraut on the side of your dinner plate is enough. You don't have to be like eating loads of it. In fact, I wouldn't think that's a good idea to eat, you know, loads of it on a given day, but 1 spoon a day is absolutely, or yogurt for breakfast or whatever. And then you want to be eating the prebiotic fiber as well that feed the bacteria. So, and that's your, you know, your vegetables, your fruit, your green bananas, your all these sort of things. So
green bananas, not the ones with the black dots, because they've turned to sugar, but
can't.
they're delicious.
Do you like knows?
Well, a little bit of like,
My mother used to be like, I'd be like, Mom, I can't. They're practically black. And well, I think it's delicious. And I'm like, oh,
oh, not really dark, no.
oh
just
yeah,
like
the
a little,
darker the
like,
better. Yeah, my mother used to, and
well,
I
they're
would be
basically
like,
sugar.
yeah, I can't. It's too, and even the smell is too much for me. But anyway,
My friend that I lived with in Berlin, Alex, taught me a trick that if they start going dark, chop them up and freeze them, and then you can put them in smoothies, and it's bloody delicious.
oh yes,
I know.
great
Yeah, I used to
tip.
write the smoothies, but then
Yes.
there's also schools of thought about those as well. If I came to you, because I just, for people that are January, New Year, New Me, all that kind of malarkey, which we don't really subscribe to, do
No.
we? Well, I don't.
No, I don't actually, because
Yeah.
I think if we just do, I think for me, I think consistency is the key. And I think if you do, if you eat consistently well most days, you should be
Yeah.
okay. Or if you get a 30-minute walk every day, if you get up at the same time every day, if you just do these little things
Yeah.
well every day, it doesn't have to be running a marathon. That'll hold you in good stead.
Yeah.
So, and I also think like the whole January thing as well, willpower alone is not enough. You know what I mean? You might last for 3 weeks or 4 weeks or even 6 weeks, but it's like you're not going to have long-term change in that. Like a kickstart is great, don't get me wrong, if that's what you need. But it's like, what are you going to do after? And that's where actually a lot of people come after to people like me after, and they're like, okay, I need something sustainable. I need something that I can do that's going to work for me long term. You know what? It's nice to give this to my kickstart every now and again throughout the year. But the idea that it's going to change your life, it's absolutely not going to change your life long term.
And I think it's good, like, I love setting intentions and be like, okay, this is what I'm going to do in 2025. This is what I'm going to let go of in 2024. That's literally what I did. Burning the sage, lol, that's like my new thing. But what I agree with you, it's like everyone's talking about New Year, New Me, but actually it's all behavior change. And it's like, we have to have the systems in place to support our behavior change.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, we're not going to do it. It's going to last 5 minutes. And that's exactly it. The motivation drops. And motivation, I read this book once and it was really interesting. And it was basically kind of saying that there's no such thing as motivation, really.
Yeah.
It's about having a know-how, having a dream or a vision or a goal, and then knowing how to get there.
Yeah.
Because the hardest thing is about doing something, behavior change or whatever, is that you actually just like, you don't know how to do it, or you don't know where to start. And then if you are someone that wants to improve your health or your life, you go online and you are just bombarded with absolute madness. And every influencer is trying to sell you stuff, and it's like this protein shake, that supplement. And I'm like, you know what? This is just all such bullshit. I don't want to be in anyone's sales funnel. Have an accountability partner. I want to talk to someone who understands what they're talking about, who understands women's health, women's hormones. And I want to be able to take advice from someone who actually sees me for who I am. And I really used to struggle with all those influencers. They're all wearing like bloody matching velour tracksuits, and they're all there with their little tiny bodies and their six packs. And I remember just thinking like, this is just so far from anything that I am or aspire to be. And it's just like really...
Well, I think, Amy, if your hormones are disrupted, and if one is in a really not in a great place, and they know that their body is off and it's not working for them in the way that it should, I think the last thing that they should try to let go of is body size or thinking about how they look or anything like that, because the issue is so much deeper and more complex than that. And it's not as simple as, like calories in or calories out or anything like that. It's far more nuanced and complex than that. So, I think it's important. I agree with you that the messaging is so conflicting out there now and contradictory, but you can't change the fact that our bodies, for the most part, are made up of this same network of systems. And, once you're following people who are following the research as it's coming out and, are furnishing you with the research if you're asking for that, then I think that's important. And I think people need to take control of their own health as well, and not outsourcing it all the time. And that actually was the biggest learning curve for me. Nobody, because I was in such a, when you're in burnout, your brain isn't working right either. You know what I mean? Because as I say, with that brain connection, and So I was thinking somebody was going to sort me out. Some doctor was going to sort me out. And it's like,
Yes.
no, that was the biggest learning curve for me,
Yeah.
that I needed to find somebody I could trust for sure
Yes.
to coach me through it. And I had an amazing nutrition coach. And I was lucky to have a good menopause coach and so on and so forth. But I had to do the work.
Yeah.
I had to do the work. I had to really realize that I needed to gently knuckle down and slow down
Yeah.
and nourish my body and realize what was right for me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And actually cutting out the noise is a really good idea sometimes, you
Yeah.
know, because social media can be a
Oh my
scary
God.
place.
There's
Amy.
like, and having gone through the whole health thing as well myself, and having to tried so many different things. Like I've tried so many different things for my health, and there's just so much stuff that's like exploiting women who are struggling with hormonal problems, who whatever it is can't lose weight or struggling with fatigue, whatever. And there's so much like exploitative stuff that is, follow me and come on my program and buy the supplement, from people who are not following the research. And I'm glad you said that, because there is people on social media can basically say whatever they want and sell whatever they want. I see it in my world where people are like, you know, join my program and you'll get like another 100,000 followers, but they're all using pods, and it's basically a pyramid scheme or a scam that is rife in the fitness industry. That's why I love your content. Like you're also sharing stuff. It's research based. It's very specific to women, to basically women like me who are like, yeah, I've had hormonal imbalances, but you're making it very digestible to people. I don't need to be like someone who is deeply into nutrition myself, but you're helping me kind of access the information in a way that I will actually be able to use it in my day to day. And I think that's a real art, and it's very hard to do.
Thank you, Amy.
But you know,
well, I say the same to you. Yeah.
But like it's hard. You get like the noise is wild online, and the whole food and diet and well-being thing is just so overwhelming. And
well, the irony actually of it, Amy, is that if you are looking at that demographic of women who are really struggling with that balance and that hormone balance, and they just know they don't feel right, they're sad a lot or angry a lot, or they're suffering with, you know, really bad bloating or gut issues or heavy bleeding or whatever the case may be, I honestly think social media is the Wild West for people like that. What they actually need is a nurturing presence and somewhere they can turn to. They don't need this frenetic noise. They actually need to learn how to slow down. And that was the biggest learning for me. Learning how to slow down and learning how to shut out the noise a little bit, and implementing again these kind of relaxation modalities and techniques. And again, even stuff like that, Amy, honestly, because I was so busy being a manager and you know in the fashion industry, like every business, it's like you're working the next season, the next season, the next season, the next season, the next season. You're in this season and you're buying for 2 seasons down the line. It's just crazy. So it was learning to be. So actually, my original point was that I was like, I have time for mindfulness or slowing down or sound baths. Are you for real? Yoga. You know what I mean? There was no time for any of this. That's all woo woo. You know what I mean? And now I'm like, oh, holy shit. We have got it all wrong.
I know.
We have got it all wrong. The whole thing has been flipped. We actually need to flip it. And I just want to say another thing as well. This whole thing about, you know, idolizing being busy and, I have time for that. I'm up the wall. That is so toxic.
That's so toxic.
That is so toxic and so dangerous to women who are struggling. Because they're thinking, I was up baking at 6 o'clock this morning and rang a marathon. And then I'm into work at 9:30. And that needs to stop being applauded and lauded. And no, you don't want to shame anybody and say that's not cool. But it's like, hey, you know,
it doesn't have to be this way.
Yeah, and employers need to take responsibility as well and stop pushing.
Well, it's unsustainable. And the problem is that people are going to get burnt out and be off on sick leave, which is going to cost your business more. Are they going to leave and you have to replace them, which is going to cost your business more? So the whole thing, I mean, I've worked in loads of different companies and like, just some of the carry on, this high pressure. Someone said that to me recently when I was basically challenging them about like the culture being really questionable. And it was like, oh, well, it's just like a high performance culture. I'm like, this is not a high performance culture. And loads of people were leaving the business.
I actually think what you're doing is so important, Amy. And I really, you know, I admire you for doing it because somebody has to do it. Somebody has to be brave and say, this has to stop.
Yeah.
We're fostering, we're fostering a culture of sickness.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Stress,
And burnout.
Yeah.
And I can honestly tell you, if it hadn't happened to me, I wouldn't know intellectually, because I've studied it now.
Yeah.
I would be able to understand it, and I'm naturally an empath, so I know I would be able to heal and support and help women who are going through it. But having been through it, I'm like, oh no, this is nonsense.
Yeah.
And by the way, I don't have children either as well.
Yeah.
Imagine, can you imagine? In fairness, and thankfully, there people are talking about it. The difficulty of being a woman and a mother and a business owner or whatever. But you don't even have to be that to burn out. You can burn out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, or like a person working in the corporate world. We live in a capitalist society, and we have to kind of, in some way, if you want to be wealthy and have a good career, in some way you have to play the game and lean in, and I do get that.
Yeah, of course.
But equally, it's like especially if you're kind of like maybe neurodivergent or a woman or someone from any sort of underrepresented community, it's like you always are trying to overcompensate, and you're always trying to do the most so that you're then maybe going to get the promotion or whatever, and you're always overcompensating and people pleasing and saying yes. And then,
but I feel that was me, just because I didn't have the kids and the family, so I felt that my voice wasn't valid. That what's she talking about? She doesn't go home to 5 kids and have to do this, that, and the other. I mean that. Whereas now I'm like, oh no,
you're just
what about I need to speak up for people like me. It's okay. You need to stop overcompensating and working harder. And working later because you don't have to go home. No.
Everyone deserves rest. Everyone deserves to have their voice heard. And no one is better than anyone just because they have a couple of kids. The burnout thing is so real, the glorification. And like, because I'm also an empath, which I think it's a whole other conversation, because that's actually very taxing and it's not necessarily a good thing. But I can see people, I'm talking to people, whether it's my friends or people that I'm working with, clients, whatever, and they are just busting their ass and they're on the verge of burnout, and I'm trying so hard to kind of get them to see this is really unhealthy what you're doing, and you are literally driving yourself into an early grave.
It's really hard to see it until you're actually in it, and that's why I actually want to make it my mission to be a voice in the space, talking about burnout, about adrenal fatigue, about nervous system regulation, and thankfully, overproduction or underproduction of cortisol and so on and so forth. And it is becoming more of a conversation, but I do believe you don't know it until you're in it, until it's just tipped over too far. So that's why these conversations are so important.
Yeah.
And, rest is radical.
Yeah, I love that.
Rest is radical.
Rest is radical.
Rest is a radical, bold move to rest. Imagine to say that in this world that we live in. To rest is to do something radical, because I think it's changing, but it used to be like, oh, you're having a rest. You're not climbing a mountain.
Especially
you're
in
not.
Ireland.
It's like, no, I'm not. I'm actually going for a rest.
The notions herself is going for a rest. Like, who does she think she is? Your one
going for a
resting
rest.
around the place.
Yeah.
That's so radical. That's so funny. Rest is radical. You need to trademark that ASAP.
Okay, rest is radical.
That's your next lead magnet.
I'm going to put it on I'll put it on my Instagram today. Rest is radical.
Yeah,
maybe.
that's your thing.
And
own it
against the whole craziness of January. I'll be like, rest is radical.
We need to be resting, girl. Okay. We need to be resting in January.
Okay.
I now have at least, I haven't been good at it in the last couple of months because of my business, but normally I have one day in the week where I'm trying to just do absolutely nothing. I make no plans. Maybe it's like a Sunday, I might go to the gym, but that's fine to me, having a little bit of a maybe workout or even going for a walk, and not having any commitments or any of that pressure on you. That's to just amazing. Do what you please. Like, that's
amazing.
I was really good at doing it. I haven't really been so good recently because I am working sometimes at the weekends, but I just enjoy so much doing what I'm doing now, and I love making content and I love writing, and there's a lot to do. Even if it's actually right now like one day a month, just to have nothing, just have a day of complete slowness where you're not looking at social media and you're just literally, maybe you want to just lie on the couch all day. Those days I used to think that I was such a bad human being if I had one of those days and I wasn't sick. And now I'm like, these days are so important, and you don't have to deal with the outside world. You're not putting on any sort of a mask or any sort of front for anyone. You're just lying on your couch. You're being you. You're watching shit TV. You're having a day of like nothing. And It's so true. Like the rest
But
is
I
a radical
think
thing.
a key word there, and you said it earlier actually, within that, Amy, is intention.
Yeah.
And I think you're being intentional about your rest there and saying, I am having this day off where I do nothing. And that makes it all the more pleasuresome or pleasureful, whatever the word is.
Yeah.
Pleasuring, I don't know. But
Relax, girl.
Relax, girl. So whereas in the past, perhaps, not setting that intention, one day watching Netflix can lead to the other, and then you might end up in a scenario where you're feeling bad about yourself, and that's not what this is about at all.
Yeah.
It's about intentional rest.
Yes.
And within that, making space for that, and I do think, turning off your phone or whatever the case may be, because we have to set those measures that it doesn't turn into a scenario whereby we're zoning out. That's important as well, that you feel good about yourself. You know what I mean? And I totally get. I think binging on Netflix is good once it's done with intention.
You know what?
Am I making sense?
You are. And as I said that, I was like, maybe not watching Netflix all day.
No, but if that's what you want to do, then you've got to feed your soul, right?
Well, yes, I think it's just having nothing on. But equally, I am learning a lot about, like, social media is, yes, it's kind of a necessary evil for me.
Absolutely.
But equally, that is my intention for 2025. Definitely this year, because of how much I have to do with my business and how focused I need to be. Social media is taking a massive backseat in terms of the scrolling.
Right.
And it is so bad for us. Like, it's so bad for our mental health. It's so bad for our time. Like, how am I ever going to reach my full potential?
Right.
And build an amazing business if I'm going to be scrolling on Instagram? Like, what if I replace that with a book about marketing and about building a business, or about, I don't know, being tax effective and efficient?
Yeah.
It's like, or about wellness, or about fermenting. So it's kind of like, what I really want to do is swap out that habit, because I know every time I do that, sometimes I'll just delete the apps off my phone. I don't want to be radical about it because I still need them. But equally, I'm like, okay, delete off my phone so I'm not mindlessly scrolling. At least then I can intentionally have a look at it maybe in the evening or at the weekend. But like, I'm just trying to be really, intentional with everything that I'm doing right now, because I'm like, I have big plans for myself. I need to just find a way to get there. I know that if I choose this path and keep scrolling social media, I'll end up down here. But I know if I actually am disciplined and mindful and intentional, I will end up here where I really want to be. What are things that people should look out for as early signs of burnout?
Early signs of burnout would be things, and it mightn't be things that you imagine it would be at all. It could be your irritation level would be pretty,
I can relate to that.
Getting irritated quickly, your sleep might be affected. Low mood is a really big one, or crying episodes. So, but you might have both the crying depression as well as the rage. You can have both. Anxiety, not wanting to be around people, making excuses for not to go places. People pleasing, though, the duality of that is that you might find yourself people pleasing a lot. Whereby you find yourself in places that you don't want to be, and yet you don't know how to say what you really want, and then you might blow up sometime. Just doing too much for too many people. And then physical signs can manifest in things like, it can be your gut health, it can be, really, really, really bad fatigue, joint pain, aches. But depression, burnout is a lot of it is more mental effects of it. Well, for me anyway, definitely. But at the time I was entering perimenopause as well, so there was all of that disruption going on. You know what I mean? So I never knew why I was crying. I never knew. There was everything to cry about and nothing to cry about. You know what I mean? It was sure until then, when I knew that I just can't do anymore.
What about if people spot the early signs? What would be your advice to them then?
Well, my advice would be to go obviously go to your GP first and get everything checked, get your thyroid checked. Absolutely. Definitely vitamin get your thyroid checked, your vitamin B levels, because if you're low in that, it's definitely going to can lend to depressive mood and stuff like that. Get a full blood count check. These things might come back all okay, but you still don't feel good.
That's really worse, because then you have no reason.
So then it's time to go down the functional medicine route, as opposed to, like, say, the conventional medicine. You've already ticked all of that box. By the way, just getting back to the thyroid thing, it's really important to ask your antibodies check as well, to make sure you don't have any autoimmune issues. But then go the functional medicine route, like get in touch with a really good nutrition and health coach like me.
Absolutely.
And then we can really tease out your life and where you are in your life.
Yeah.
Are you where you want to be? Are you doing something every day that makes you really unhappy and sad?
Yeah.
Do you want to have children? Would you like to be in a relationship? Is there somebody in your life who's dragging you down?
Yeah.
Are there measures that we can put in place? Is your diet consisting of pizza every night of the week? Are you drinking too much alcohol? Are you smoking
Yeah.
weed? Are you doing all of these things that mightn't be helping you? And it might sound really scary to give, because these things serve as friends as well when we're low.
Yeah.
And it's like, how can we work at, reducing things and adding in more? Like, honestly, your diet is so important when you're entering burnout as well. But the irony is that you're so exhausted, all you want to do is
eat crap, beige food.
So it's like beige food, exactly. So it's like just getting a little bit of green in there, and just getting a little probiotic and prebiotic food, just little bits and pieces. And just the support, I definitely do think one needs support at that time.
Yes.
Like, if I could go back in time, oh my God. Like, I would have been seeing somebody like me immediately, and I would have been walking hand in hand with them. And, but look, we'll learn as we go.
Accountability, and to have, as I said earlier, like, it's not really necessarily a lack of motivation. It's just like, it's such a big mountain. I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of hand holding and someone educating you and looking at your life. It's also that it's specific to you as an individual, because all of us, everyone just wants to be seen and heard and understood and given at the time to speak and be like, this is what I'm struggling with. I'm finding this really hard.
Yeah.
Mary Claire, that was so wonderful. Where can we find you?
So I'm at MaryClaire_nutrition on Instagram, and my website is maryclairenutrition.com, and all of my links and everything are there. So go check it out, and by all means, get in touch if you need help with any of the issues that we spoke about. I mean, it's all on my website, what I help people with.
Great. And I think this time of year, to be fair, it's kind of like a fresh start.
Yeah.
And people do the dog on it over Christmas and drink and eat everything.
Yeah.
We all do it, especially in Ireland. I'm in a new chapter. I'm in a new era.
Yeah.
Now my health is all I have. All we have is health.
It's all we have, Amy. Yeah.
And we don't get a manual. And we don't learn in school how to look after our nervous system, our mental, our physical health, how your body works, what it needs, the movement, the food, the sleep, and the joy as well, bringing joy, creativity. Like, that has been for me life-changing for my mental health, doing things that I love. It's just like...
Getting back to that January thing as well, Amy, there's a long time between now and this time next year. And if you are struggling, and if you know that you need to maybe make some changes and you don't know where to, you can do so much between now and this time next year. You can change your whole health profile for a start. That goes without saying. But you can change your attitude, your mental health, whereby you don't feel so lonely or so overwhelmed or whatever. There's so much possibility. Yeah. But I agree with you. I think it's important to have an accountability partner, somebody who will lay down a pathway for you.
A plan of attack.
Yeah, plan of attack. Yeah. Plan of attack. I love a plan of attack.
Thank you.
Thank
that was
you.
Great.